Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Spirit. This will be Part 18, Chapter 18, entitled Goodbye. The battle is chaos. It doesn't last long, but the remaining PLF members don't go down without a fight. Izuku's been around ghosts, but he hasn't seen death before. Not the bloody, violent, cruel chaos of war. After only an hour, when dozens of villains are hurt or dead, and heroes and villains alike are strewn about in the carnage, the remaining villain army turns and runs. The back half of the hero group, including 1A, didn't even have to lift a finger. It's a little hard to take in, especially when Izuku sees Hawks pick up Dabi and fly away, clearly when they think no one's looking. Hard to take in when he watches Aizawa put quirk suppressing cuffs on Shigaraki. Hizashi at his side. Izuku's relieved both his parents are relatively uninjured from the fight. Stain's ghosts disappear when the battle is won, and Izuku feels himself stumble when they leave, like a tugging in his chest. The spirits haven't moved on, but they're gone back to wherever they were before, and Izuku feels emboldened, knowing he can call on them again if he needs help. Oboro has vanished, and Izuku looks for him for a while before deciding to search for him using his quirk, the same way he had contacted Stain's victims. He feels like it's suddenly very important to find Oboro, even given the carnage around him. After wandering for a few minutes, Izuku finds Oboro in the chaos of the rubble. He's standing stock still, looking up at the sky with a pensive expression on his face. Izuku's heart hammers, immediately understanding what's happening. He's felt it before, with other spirits, but never with one he was as close to as Oboro. "It's time, isn't it?" Oboro asks, looking sadly at Izuku as he walks closer. Izuku nods, although his heart wrenches. "I think so. You feel ready. You have for a while." Oboro sighs, looking at Izuku with a soft smile. "I thought we'd have more time, you know. Seems like just yesterday I found you walking home from school. Where would I be if you hadn't taken that side street?" "Probably still sitting on that fence," Izuku jokes, although his throat is already choked with tears. "Nissan." He can't even finish, and Oboro pulls Izuku into a hug, a tight one, kissing his forehead. Izuku begins to cry, his breath hitching as he reaches up to grip his hands in Oboro's shirt. He is unaware that Aizawa and Hizashi have found him, running up to the scene. "I love you, kid," Oboro says, pressing Izuku's face against his chest. "You've been my best friend, my little brother for so long. You saved me from being unbearably lonely. You are my hero, Izuku." Izuku just sobs, knowing it's the end, knowing Oboro's going to leave, but he can't let go yet. Even though he knows it's time and that Oboro deserves his freedom and rest, Izuku doesn't want it to end. Oboro's been there for as long as he can remember, more alive to Izuku than almost anyone else. "Nissan," he chokes out. "I don't want you to go." It's childish and unfair of him to say, but Izuku feels like that little 4-year-old again, that lost, scared little kid. Oboro had been such a steadying force for him, while he dealt with his mom's death and throughout everything. Thinking of moving on without him, it was unbearable. "I'm sorry, kid. I think I have to," Oboro said sadly, rubbing Izuku's back. "I've overstayed. I got to live another life, you know. It's time for me to move on. For real this time." Izuku cries a little harder, gripping Oboro's shirt before he pulls back, looking at Oboro with sad eyes. Oboro looks over to Hizashi and Aizawa, who can see him since he's touching Izuku. They both walk over, faces sad as they see their son clinging to their young, dead best friend. "You two are the best," Oboro says with a smile. "I'm so fucking proud of you both, and Izuku. He's the best kid in the world, and you two are incredible parents. Eri's so lucky to have you." Hizashi walks forward first, putting a hand on Oboro's shoulder while Aizawa comes up and wraps him in a one-armed hug. Oboro looks overwhelmed for a moment before smiling gently. "Go on," Hizashi smiles, although it's sad. "It's time for the next adventure, right?" Oboro grins. "That's right. Show to get some sleep before I see you next, all right?" Aizawa laughs, although Izuku can hear tears in his voice as he responds. Yeah, I promise." "Tell Eri I'll miss her," Oboro says with a smile before ruffling Izuku's hair. "And Hitoshi and Katsuki, too. I love you, kid." "I love you, too," Izuku sniffs as Oboro steps back. Izuku moves to settle against his parents, Izashi taking his hand and Aizawa wrapping an arm around him. They watch together as Oboro looks up at something above him, his eyes widening, and Izuku thinks he looks just a bit more alive. And as with all other spirits Izuku's seen pass on, Oboro was simply, and suddenly, gone. There's silence from the three of them as they stare at the space where Oboro used to be. Izuku feels a strange coolness run over him, and he shudders a little, both Aizawa and Hisashi looking at him in surprise. "Your hair," Hisashi sniffs. "It's back to green, and your eyes are green again too, Izuku." Izuku knows then that Oboro really is gone. 1,000 memories run through his mind, moments with Oboro he'll never get back. A lifetime of happy and sad memories, all intertwined into something that makes up Izuku's life. He knows it's a little odd to mourn someone who died so long ago, but to Izuku, Oboro was alive. He was a constant presence, always there, always supporting him. He's happy for Oboro, knowing that being tied to the earth because of Kurogiri had to be agony, happy that his brother's spirit is free. But he'll never hear Oboro tease his friends, never use his clouds again, never fight with them at his side. He doesn't know how to exist without Oboro, his adoptive older brother's absence leaving a gaping hole inside of his heart that Izuku doesn't know how to fill. Izuku turns to press his face against Hisashi's chest and sobs into his parents' arms. Izuku's both sad and relieved, grieving Oboro's loss like a death of a loved one. He knows it's for the best, but it's so painful to say goodbye after so long. "Come on, honey," Aizawa says to Izuku, his voice gentle. "It's time to go home." Walking off the battlefield is a surreal experience. Izuku knows his friends are all safe since they were in the back, but there are still hundreds of dead people strewn about the ground. Some are people Izuku recognizes, heroes from Japan and around the world. He tries not to look for too long, knowing that soon ghosts will start appearing above the bodies. He feels like he's had enough of ghosts, at least for now. The trip back home is silent. Since the city was evacuated, there's not another soul on the road as they drive, Izuku leaning on Aizawa's shoulder in the back, while Hisashi drives them to UA. Aizawa runs his fingers through Izuku's hair, and Izuku starts to cry again, slowly and quietly. The pain and shock of the battle on top of losing Oboro are almost enough to make him crumble with grief, but one thing keeps him upright, keeps him from giving into his sadness. There's someone who needs him right now, a little girl who's got no one but the three of them. And she needs her Nissan. When they arrive home, they pick up Eri from inside UA where she was being kept safe, and she stares at Izuku open-mouthed, eyeing his green hair and eyes. She sees her brother's sad expression and wilts a little, walking over to put her hand on Izuku's cheek. "Where's Oboro?" she asks, looking all around as if she'll be able to see him. "Is he gone?" Izuku nods. "Yeah, he is, for good. He's resting now." Eri leans in to hug Izuku without another word, and he just hugs her back, wanting her to feel as safe and loved as Oboro made him feel. He gently picks her up, holding her against his chest as the family walks back to their apartment on campus. Once inside, Izuku gently sets down Eri, and Aizawa tells him to go take a shower. Seeing his reflection in the bathroom mirror makes Izuku almost jump in surprise. It's been nearly a year since he's seen himself look like this, all traces of Oboro gone. He can still see ghosts, he still has his quirk, but it feels like something's missing without his Nissan there. He wonders if he'll ever really get past it. After a hot shower, Izuku gets into his comfiest pajamas and goes out into the living room. Hisashi throws a frozen pizza in the oven for dinner, none of them having the energy to cook anything harder than that. After Aizawa and Hisashi shower, they all sit on the couch, eating pizza and watching one of Eri's favorite children's movies. When they're done eating, the four of them snuggle on the too small couch, Aizawa and Hisashi on the outer edges with Izuku squished in between, Eri half sprawled on his and Hisashi's lap. It's a tight squeeze, but Izuku feels safe, letting his head drop on Aizawa's shoulder as exhaustion from the day hits him. He tries not to think about the battle, the lives lost, the devastation. Tries not to think of his sadness at losing Oboro. Instead, he tries to focus on the good things, the things that make him smile. His last thought before he drifts off to sleep is of a cheerful grin and blue hair. He imagines Oboro laughing, putting his hands behind his head with a carefree grin. "Thanks, Nissan. I'll miss you." All right, listeners, This concludes Chapter 18 of Spirit. Chapter 19, the last and final chapter, is an epilogue, so that'll be up next. Let me know your thoughts and reactions to everything so far, and as always, thank you so much for listening.